Oh man. Hi guys.
Hello.
Hello. How are you, man?
I'm
Welcome
doing
to
rather
the
well.
Yeah, I could tell, It's good to see you.
Yeah, I have my
Welcome.
lights.
You got the lights. There you go. Welcome
Yay.
to the Welcome to the RegiCast. All right. I'm your host Reginald. Joining me is Matt. Hi Matt.
All right.
Oh,
How
okay,
you
good.
doing?
I'm good. It's the weekend, so we're gonna just vibe out, or pretend to. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. So all the important stuff's in the description. So we're just gonna get right into it. As is tradition, we're gonna start with our first impressions. Okay. So Matt, you're gonna share your first impressions of me, and then I'll share mine of you. Okay.
Okay. My first impression of you, it occurred during the first game night, I think.
Yes.
No, it was a little bit before then, actually, because I was looking at your Facebook posts. And
Mm-hmm.
I like the amount of detail you were giving. And you know, I didn't really want to watch Gary Vee before looking at your posts because I kind of get the impression that I don't really match with his values too much. If I'm looking at people who kind of have my same modalities and functions, I'm looking for people. I listen to Russell Brand more.
Yeah.
I listen to, yeah, mostly that within my own quadra, not so many other people. But the Gary V videos you linked, I actually enjoyed them. And I was like, oh, these are actually pretty okay. The one time I did look into his stuff, it was like he was talking about sports, and then he was like, you don't get to decide what's valuable. And I'm like,
Yeah.
says who?
Yeah.
And that whole thing. I didn't really want to like look at his stuff before then, but I was thinking about the way that you were talking about all the different things, and it was like a different perspective to look at it, and I liked that. And then I talked to you during the OPS game nights, and we were OPS game nighting, and I only attended one, but it was definitely fun.
Yeah.
I like the Discord bubble icon you have for the default profile picture on there. The
Yeah.
desert thing, yeah, very retro, very Utah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the Anissa one. Yeah, she did a really great
Mm.
job on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Anissa.
There you go. Clap. Okay. So that was your first impression of me, that someone else's icon, huh?
Someone else's icon.
Yeah, is that your first
No,
impression?
no. That's why I said the Facebook before the game night.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But during the game night, we chatted a little bit. I remember you was like you're a little bit quieter than I was expecting. Because I'm thinking
Mm.
about, okay, so he's play first, so he's gonna be more skibby than somebody who's consume first in this, either CPBS or PCBS. And you're just taking it easy, You were sitting back, making comments here and there.
Yeah.
You're like, ah, here's a comment, here's another comment, type of thing, Taking a
Yeah.
taking a step back, like, all right, this is the OPS game night, and
Yeah.
oh, there's a place for me to make a comment. Boop. It was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very king-like.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal.
You want to be a king?
Um, yeah, that's the kind of DI I'm kind of aiming for these days.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What was
I
your
guess
first
it's
impression of me?
Yeah, good question. You remind me of Ben Shapiro. I told you that from the beginning. You
Yeah,
have
yeah,
you
you did.
sound like him. You talk like him to a degree. You're in business like he is. Um, you're not trying. I mean, thank God you're not trying to sell me every 5 seconds. Because I
He is a
have you
huckster.
seen the show? Have you seen the show?
Oh yeah, I watch it every now and then. It's kind of entertaining.
Yeah, yeah. This one's sponsored by this, and this is sponsored by that. And if you get this, I'm like, dude, I don't. I'm
Oh,
not
I
trying to
mean
do
that's just a
that.
podcast though. Like, and I actually think that he does it pretty well. Like he
Yeah,
does it in a way that's less annoying than some of the other ones. There's this guy,
yeah,
What If Alt Hist, that I like to listen to, and the way he does it, oh, really, he's got a funny channel, but the way he does his promos is really grating. He does it right at the beginning too. It's like,
Yeah.
ugh. But he's only got one per show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm close in OP to Ben Shapiro. We got the NS thing flipped, and then even
Mhm.
though he's MF and I'm MM, it gives us both masculine OE. So there's still that relativity.
Right. Okay. All right, sounds good. I mean, that was my first impression. You reminded me of Ben Shapiro. Um, and it's interesting because you reached out to me, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
kind
I
of rare.
noticed.
So yeah, good.
Yeah, I noticed the podcast was going on, and I was like, oh wow, he got a variety of guests. I should
Oh, there,
talk to him about this. Sounds like
oh,
it'd be a
there you
fun thing to
go.
do.
There you go. Now you're here. All right. So you're the man with the plan, right? So you have some notes.
I
Some
do.
pretty thorough notes here. So you're gonna help. You gotta help
Yes.
me out.
Well, the next
So,
thing is called Matt the Human, as you recommended, where I talk a
yes.
little bit about my interests and things like that. That is
Yeah.
the next section.
That is.
And I did want to say that you're very like business/professional. You always come across like a very professional person, not like you're a tightwad or anything, but you're like you're refined.
Thank
You
you.
come across as a refined gentleman.
I appreciate that.
I do not come
Yeah.
across as a refined gentleman, nor do I intend to. But being a refined gentleman is great. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's a good style. It's a very good style.
Yeah. I appreciate
Have
that.
you ever considered wearing top hats?
I have not. It's funny. I think it's like when I first started this channel, I was way more boisterous, as I think you might have seen. I had to give that up. It's too exhausting. So, but I
Hmm.
appreciate that. I genuinely, that's kind of where I'm aiming these days. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I actually haven't
Okay.
watched the earliest podcasts.
They're kind of reckless. I'm not gonna lie.
I got to watch number one when I go home tonight.
Number one, yeah, number one is actually that was actually a super chill one because that was like obviously that was the first one, and
Hmm.
so like I was shy and I was nervous, and it was with Ikram, and Ikram's really great, and she's also a super chill person, so it's actually surprisingly chill. But I get more reckless. As I go.
All right. What do you think is the most reckless one? And then we'll get back into Matt the Human.
The most reckless show.
The one where you're the craziest. The one where you're the skibbiest. The most skibby
Dave,
Reggie.
the Dave Powers interview.
Okay.
Yeah, I got in trouble for that one. Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we don't have to go back to the event. We can
Yeah.
talk
Thank
about
you.
talk about me now. Okay.
There you go.
So
There you go.
so
Yeah. All
philosophy
right.
and psychology, right? That's like
Okay.
my big interests and stuff. It's my big
Right.
interest right now, and ultimately I want to get into music more, and I'm working on different projects to help me assist that big project of mine. But psychology and philosophy have really been getting into me. Is like these are the things that come before the things that you normally do. The things that you normally do, the things that you normally see, the philosophy and the psychology predicates that stuff. So this is sort of you're getting into the CPU. The CPU,
Okay.
you're playing your video games, you're going onto the internet, whatever. But then the inside of the CPU is the psychology and the philosophy. And that's what I really enjoyed about it. And it's a little bit more of a new interest of mine because prior to maybe like 2016, I had like a waning interest in psychology and philosophy. Maybe even 2017, I think we could put it at, a little bit. I knew a little bit about the Myers-Briggs system. I knew a little bit about Enneagram, and I knew a little bit about biases and a couple of different philosophers, I guess. But I really started getting into it more recently, and
Okay.
that really just maximized everything to a whole new level when I did that. And yeah, I mean, I'm all about music. I really like to write music and play music and stuff like that, and be on the lookout for some music projects for me in the future. And then there's other
Okay.
things that I like to do, such as like fishing and painting. And I want to eventually go hunting at some point. I think that would be a fun thing to do.
Yeah,
But
hunting.
anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
I need to write that down. No, keep going. Hunting's always been
you
like
want
one of those things. I want to do hunting actually.
to? What would you
Like
want to hunt? Like small animals?
uh, I don't know if this is politically correct to say. I like just something to eat. You know, like I don't care. Like
Well,
a
I suppose it's
deer.
better to go and like actually eat the animal than to just shoot it for fun and then leave its corpse lying
Oh,
around in the
that's
field.
very true. Yeah, that's very true. But like, yeah, like for me, hunting actually would be kind of cool. Like I don't know, like I know there's some people who even do crossbow hunting. Have you heard of that?
Hmm.
You have not?
No, but I've got police here.
Well, dude,
I don't think I'm.
I warned you. I
Hold on a
warned you
second.
about this. Just,
Am I supposed to be here or should I go someplace else? I'm just here recording a video, but I'm gonna go someplace else if you need me to do that.
Video for what?
Oh, it's just a podcast online. It's nothing.
Have you hop on the car for a second?
Oh, okay. I gotta hop out of the car for a second. I'll be right back.
okay, Matt. Well, this is a good example
Okay.
of his type, I guess.
All right. Oh, it's called RegiCast. Yeah, it's a psychology podcast. We're talking about underground research.
Underground research. Why would you explain it that way? Oh
I do, yes. I'll be right back.
Oh, no problem. Never a dull moment on my show, I guess. I guess that's good. I used to work fedoras actually, Michelle, by the way. I don't know if I have any pictures. If I find some, I'll show you. And then let's see, Joe. Wouldn't start with the crossbow. Oh, okay. So like what? Like rifles are easier, I guess. Yeah, but either way, that's always been like on the bucket list, you know. Oh my God, he's ST Eric. You got to be nice. Let's see. New Orleans, they serve alligator. Yeah, I guess you would have to hunt the alligator as well. Isn't that illegal though? Alligator these days?
All right.
Anyway, you good? Yo, oh.
All right. Well, guess what? It wasn't a big deal, and we can
Uh-huh.
continue now.
Why are you
So
putting on your seatbelt?
I'm putting on my seatbelt because I gotta move.
Oh, there you go.
We're gonna get the same internet connection though. Don't worry about it. I just
I
gotta
would, yeah. Why would I be worried?
turn out my lights. No, because in case maybe you get a Remember what happened with the Daniel podcast where you were like, he had to get his thing back and you weren't sure if it was gonna continue? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but that's not a big deal. I just got to go to the parking lot, so I got to go around some of these goalposts and stuff. And there's, we got crows out here, and it's a good time. So anyway, let's get into the conversation. We're going to talk about OP as deconstruction.
There you
right?
go.
So
okay.
Here's the thing about deconstruction, right? Now, some people like to say that physical reality isn't real because, things are always changing. And I like to say that, physical reality is always changing. Like the atoms are always changing. The chemical composition of things is always changing, stuff like that. But I like to say that reality is real as long as it's in its current state. Because if it's in its current state, you can kind of say, all right, this car that I'm driving in right now is currently made out of metal and glass and rubber, and maybe one day that's going to turn back into sand, and it's going to turn back into, whatever else is going to turn back into. But for the meantime, it's what it is. And you're not going to be, when it comes to like how you're going to use things, right? It's not going to be about what it's going to be a million years from now. It's going to be what it currently is. So when it comes to what reality actually is, it's what you're currently experiencing. It's based on use. And this is something Wittgenstein would talk about. Language is based on use. It's not based on anything that's actually real. So any of this stuff, like what is reality? Well, reality is a word that we're using to describe things.
Okay.
It's not actually a thing. Or, the steering wheel is what I'm calling this thing right here.
Right.
But it's not actually, a steering wheel.
Yes.
It's a rubber thing. It's a thing. Blah, 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 blah. So
Yes.
it's not actually, what you're calling it. And with psychology, it's harder because psychology isn't showing you like things,
Okay.
Yeah. Psychology is harder because when I say steering wheel, you know what I'm talking about. If I'm saying aggressive, that's a little bit more subjective.
Okay.
So psychology is kind of a deconstruction in itself because psychology is using words besides like aggression to describe things, right? It's using words. I mean, sometimes it'll use words like aggression to describe things, but it's not using like Satan or demonic possession, right? It tries to be a little bit more objective than that because prior to, man, I am going to have to like go to a different parking lot, but we can still talk like this. I'm just letting you know what's going to end up happening because now the sun's in my face and it's setting and you know what? It's just whatever. But not a big deal to me. I can deal with the chaos, whatever everybody wants to say. Yeah, all the OP memes. So when it comes to psychological things, and you have the Myers-Briggs community, you have a lot of people doing a lot of things, and they all mean different things. Because they're all saying, oh, well, this is TI, this is TE, this is FE. But everybody's going to have like a different interpretation of what something means. Like, I remember there was this meme I was looking at recently, and it had No Neck Ed offering his fiance toothpaste, and it said that was an INTJ thing. And I'm thinking, well, in OP terms, this is probably not the NITE, because the NITE at 54 years old would probably have enough tribe over self thinking to not be asking that type of question. So this is probably some type of DI. So it's probably the NIFI. But is that FI, or is that going to be like a lack of FE? So when you compare the OP community's understandings of what these cognitive functions are, it's much different from whatever the Myers-Briggs community is doing. And you could call objective personality an attempt to deconstruct what Myers-Briggs is, because if deconstruction is saying, you take an abstract thing like science and you say, well, this isn't really a real thing, this is just an idea, this isn't, a physical thing, it's just an abstract idea, then the same thing goes with these OP terms. It's not really real things, they're just abstract ideas, but the fact that it's more intersubjectively agreed upon and we're trying to consistently be intersubjectively agreeing upon the same things makes it a little bit less subjective and a little bit more intersubjective. And it's like you're not really living in the same world where you think that one thing is going to be objectively one thing or another. Now, of course, OP is still not an objectively real thing because, if you're going to say nothing, like even steering wheel is not an objectively real thing, then why would OP be an objectively real thing? It wouldn't. It wouldn't be an objectively real thing at all. But that's besides the point. The point is that you're trying to figure out what is going to be most reasonable for the most amount of people to understand. And to do that, you want to break down what the terms may or may not actually be. And OP frames itself as a deconstruction for previous systems of Myers-Briggs, right? It tries to be a little bit more specific with what it's talking about. And, Wikipedia will define deconstruction as the relationship between text and meaning. So we can kind of think about that. We can think about, what is the meaning of steering wheel? Well, it's based on use. We can think about what is the meaning of TE? It's more or less based on use. It's based on who are these people, what is their cognitive use for TE? Now, granted, OP is not really a behavioral science, which is not to say that behavioral psychology is the best type of psychology. I kind of tend to disagree. I think behavioral psychology, especially the type that ignores private events, which is the stuff that happens on the inside that can't be observed by another person, I think that there's like a little bit too much emphasis of that in psychology, which leaves out the cognitive aspect of psychology, which is really important because what goes on in the mind is going to affect what goes on in the behavior. And different people are going to perform different sets of behavior for different reasons.
Okay.
And yeah, that's like a really important thing. What are your thoughts?
Well, sorry, dude. This is the last 20 minutes were pretty eventful for me. Okay, I'm still processing the last 20 minutes of what just happened. There's like sun behind you as well.
There is, but that's not as bad as in my face, and that's gonna go
Ah,
down in a
yes.
couple minutes, you know.
Right.
And it's, at least it's not a cop.
Yes, that's very true. So, okay. So my thoughts on what you're describing. I'm familiar with that somewhat. There's I don't know if you've seen that one painting of like Ceci ne pas un pipe, right? So it's like it would be a picture of a pipe, and like there's like someone who says this is not a pipe. So it's like the image of the pipe is not the actual reality. So that's basically reminding me of what you're talking about. I know that's very any and tangential, but like that's honestly what I was thinking of the whole time. I'm like, okay, you have all these words, and they are representing your actual experience, but they are not your actual experience. And the problem with psychology is it's harder for them to clearly describe what the actual experience is because, like you said, it's abstract, right? Like you said, aggressiveness, TEDE. These are very, these are clusters of behavior that aren't quite clear just yet. You know, and so it's hard for me to say what reality it's pointing to. Even with the intersubjectivity, it's hard for me to point to where in the sensory, for lack of better terms, where in the sensory world, like what experience in the sensory world is this word trying to point at?
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I took away from it.
Yeah, and I'm also finding it interesting that you brought on this example with the pipe, and you said that it was ME and tangential. Now that's a linguistic idea, but to me, I thought it was very, that was your impression.
Sure.
And that wasn't my impression because I didn't automatically think of that painting, although I know exactly what painting you're referring to. And I suppose the question becomes, what does tangential mean to you? Because to me, that was kind of an immediate assumption. Like when you described that, I was relating to it. Oh, well, this could just be like an immediate impression that you would have gotten from it. Maybe somebody could argue that would be an NI impression, that when somebody is SE saying a certain amount of things, you're getting an NI impression off of those things that you remember that this thing that happened.
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it gets subject to interpretation, right? Like I don't know. That's my honest answer.
Yeah.
I think I interpret it as tangential personally because it's like it was almost like a side. It's like it was almost a side topic. It could have very easily become a side topic. Is how I said. Like it wasn't like I was immediately answering your question. So yeah.
Yeah. And tangents are fun anyway. But I still do, I didn't really understand NESI versus SENI before I started getting into this stuff. My understanding of it, even though I didn't realize it, was when I would see somebody with high kinesthetic intelligence, I would automatically assume, oh, that's an ESTP. So what his interpretation of intuition is going to be based off of his experiences. And, the whole SE stereotype is in the Myers-Briggs community is very different from what OP considers it, because OP considers sensory things as is, and then intuitions things as if. But if you're collecting a bunch of things as is without making a pattern or a connection for it, that's still sensory. So if I'm reading a bunch of Hegel and Derrida and all this philosophy, and I'm saying, well, this is what this guy said, this is what that guy said, that's still sensory. And then if I'm trying to figure out what other specific sensory things correlate to that, that's still almost sensory, to the point if you're looking at the SC-NI axis, the sensory, the SC is the comparing of the physical objects with the NI still in the background. And the NI is still driving the SC, and the SC is still driving the NI for those who have NI at the top. And you're still looking for these connections in between things. You're still, if I was to look at a carrot and say that looks like it belongs on a snowman's nose, would that be SC or NI? Well, I mean, to a certain extent, it would be NI because, it's like, oh, the carrot could be used as if it were to be a snowman's nose instead of to be used for cooking.
Yeah.
Whereas I could say, oh, that carrot looks like a pencil could that be more SC because it's more like, oh, a long object, a long pointy object. But that would also still be N. So it's kind of more or less, to a certain extent, these things are both doing the same thing, but I think it really more depends on what is your attitude. Do you want to really base your confidence in what you're trying to do based off of the as-if interpretations you get from stuff, or do you want to base your confidence based off of what you know, off of the, as-is collecting of data and saying, okay, because I've collected all the data, I can make an as-is interpretation. I can make an as-if interpretation based on all of the as-is that I defined. But I don't think it makes sense to say that like an FISC consume, sleep, blast, play, double feminine is going to have kinesthetic intelligence, like high kinesthetic intelligence, or even an SCFI of that type, because kinesthetic intelligence implies that it's not about perception and judgment. These things, we call it O, like the O and the D, but Jung called it the P and the J, and we don't use that in this system, I'm assuming, because objective personality don't want to confuse people who are coming into the system and then saying, oh, this is JI and JE, PI and PE, but basically DI and DE are JI and JE, and then PI and PE are OI and OE, and when you look at it that way, it's fuck, I forgot what I
You went on like 5 tangents, bro. It's okay.
No, I was specifically doing what I was gonna be doing. It happens sometimes, but like the JI, right? Like sometimes every so often, in order to like get back on track, I gotta like say random stuff. But the perception and judgment, like it's perception and judgment. So observing and deciding is basically, observing is the perception and judgment is the deciding. But it's not about what specific intelligences you're using or what big 5 character traits you have. Because you could have anybody out of any 512 type with any of the big 5 things. You're probably going to have more statistical correlations, but Andrew Yang is very good at skipping. He does it all the time. Every now and then, in the class, he's like, oh, he did that thing on Colbert, and Colbert made fun of him for it, and that might have been that specific situation relative to what he was thinking about. But you see him in all these other situations, and he's doing it very well. And then you see somebody who's like... play, blast, consume, sleep, consume, very, play, blast, somebody like C.S. Joseph, he's kind of like mopey, stuff like that. I'm not going to condone his ethos or anything like that. I'm just saying, he's play, blast, and he tends to mope a lot. Like, he's not really like, the only like Logan Paul is play, consume, blast, sleep.
Okay.
Even though he's play, consume, he's much more skibbier. You'd think he's a play, blast, consume, sleep. But those are big 5 things that you're measuring when you're looking at the OP stuff. It's more about the perception and the judgment. So you got to figure out why are they doing what they're doing, and that's where it gets more difficult to interpret. But sometimes it's really obvious. Sometimes people stick out. Sometimes people like David Bayer, although I feel like a lot of people got his type right because he looks like Tom, and people are like, oh, they're playing the lookalike game. But what can you really say about that? The lookalike games, like. Could it be that there is like some thing where it's sort of like, okay, you look like this person, you're gonna tend to act more like them, or do you look like them because you act like them? To the extent that your psychology influences your physiology and your skull shape can be influenced by the way that you think, because you're going to be, based upon the way that you think, it's going to have like your neuromuscular system. It's going to reorient itself, and it's going to look a little bit different.
Yeah.
What do you think about the lookalike game?
I am skeptical of it.
Like when
Because
you have the clusterings, it's like, well, the clusterings are occurring, but why?
oh, I don't know yet. I don't have enough information on that. That's my observer side. I can't answer that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's possible that we're measuring things that are legitimate to an extent, and it's definitely useful to think about
Yeah.
these things. You've been in the system enough, and I've been in the system for a while, and I see these patterns of behavior all the time.
Yeah.
Whether or not this is ultimately the biggest truth as to how people behave, I don't know, but it seems like it's a pretty valid tool for, like, oh, well, that's what's going on here, that's what's going on there.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between SCNI and NESI, as I was kind of stumbling across a book that I was reading recently.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. There's this book. It's called Social Cognition by Susan T. Fiska.
Oh,
It's
you brought this
the
one too.
second edition. Yeah, yeah. I want to read a little bit from it.
Oh, go for it.
It doesn't talk about NESI and SENI, but what it does instead is it uses these terms that seem to be more or less what we're defining those two observer axes as.
Okay.
And it's pretty interesting, although this book tends to have a hard preference towards SENI. And it says
Okay.
that NESI doesn't exist. So even though I'm going to finish reading this book eventually, it's kind of like I'm thinking, well, okay, this book has partial information, but it might have a whole lot of stuff in here that's going to be pretty interesting. So here we go. Approaches to studying the social thinker. Two broad intellectual approaches to the study of social cognition, elemental and holistic, can be traced to psychology's origins in philosophy. Knowing something of social cognition's intellectual history will give perspective to its current efforts. The elemental approach is characterized by breaking scientific problems down into pieces and analyzing the pieces in separate detail before combining them. The holistic approach is characterized by analyzing the pieces in the context of other pieces and focusing on the entire configuration of relationships among them. The distinction will become clearer as the two approaches are described. Until the beginning of the century, psychology was a branch of philosophy, and philosophers provided some basic principles of mind that still carry weight today. In the elemental tradition of British philosophers, the mind is likened to chemistry, in which ideas are the elements. Any concept, whether concrete like salt or abstract like shame, is a basic element. Any element can be associated with any other element. The bonds between concepts create mental chemistry. In the elemental view, ideas come first from our sensations and perceptions. Then they are associated by contiguity in space and time. That is, if salt is next to pepper on the table, the two can become a unit through contiguity. Repetition is the key to moving from simple contiguity to a mental compound. If salt and pepper are on the table together every day of your life, then when you think of salt, you will automatically think of pepper. Salt and pepper becomes a mental compound. Similarly, if the concept professor often comes up on television, for example, at the same time as the concept absent minded, they are likely to be associated simply as a function of repeated pairings. People consciously use the principles of repetition and contiguity in daily life, too. Think of the last time you attempted to memorize the 7 contiguous digits of a phone number by repeating them until they became a unit. Frequency of repetition is a major factor that determines the strength of an association. Around the turn of the century, psychology began to emerge as a discipline separate from philosophy, and at that time, the notions of mental chemistry were first put to empirical test. The first laboratory psychologists, such as Wilhelm Wundt and Hermann Ebbinghaus, trained themselves and their graduate students to observe their own thought processes, to introspect on how they committed ideas to memory and how they retrieved ideas from memory. Their method was to analyze experience into its elements, to determine how they connect, and to determine the laws that govern the connections. These themes that started with the British philosophers continue to form the basis of modern experimental psychology. Shortly, we will see how the elemental approach is currently represented within the study of social cognition. So that right there to me seemed like NESI,
Okay.
because they're first determining how the things are connecting, and then they're determining the laws that govern those connections. So they're looking at the connections first, and then looking for what are, the laws. So basically, what is the sensory that's bringing those things together?
Okay.
Then we have the holistic view, which is basically the SCNI. And it's interesting because for the elemental view, they're using Hume's discussions. And Hume is usually typed by the internet as ENFP, so
Okay.
lead NE type. In reaction to the elemental approach, the German philosopher Immanuel Kant, who often gets typed as ISTP, so an SCNI user, argues for an emphasis on tackling the whole mind at once. In his view of the mind, mental phenomena are inherently subjective. That is, the mind actively constructs a reality that goes beyond the original thing in and of itself, the NI. A bunch of grapes is perceived as a unit, but that perception is a construction of the mind. Perceiving a bowl of grapes differs from perceiving each individual grape separately. Similarly, if someone cuts off some grapes and the remaining ones topple out of the bowl, the two movements are perceived as linked in a cause and effect relationship. Again, that perception is furnished by the mind. It is not inherent in the stimulus. The intellect organizes the world, creating perceptual order from the properties of the surrounding field. And I think that basically summarizes the ideas between here. We spent less time on SCNI because actually there's more to read on SCNI, but I think you get the idea that,
Sure.
The bowl of grapes is the SC, and then, the bowl of grapes, like the actual bowl of grapes is the SC, and then the NI is like looking at the, okay, this is a bowl of grapes. Meanwhile, the NE would say, well, this is a bowl of grapes in relation to, a bowl of tomatoes or something like that. Is that how NE tends to work? Like, it's like, oh, I could tell this is a bowl of grapes because it's like, if it was a bowl of tomatoes.
I can't tell these days, just, I really can't. I can't, I don't know.
Yeah, it's mostly a book on schema. It's a book on schema. It's a book on shit like differentiating among affects, preferences, evaluations, and moods, stuff like that. It's it's a whole bunch of things. It's a big book. It's the second edition. It's like 500 pages, and there's a whole bunch of things in there. But I was reading that, and I'm like, okay, from this, I'm gonna use this interpretation to try and figure out, how to type better, because I can figure out perhaps what axis the person might be on. Because if they're saying Hume is looking at it this way, that's like, well, Hume is basically preaching his saviors. Now, there might be a lot of value out of his saviors. And people say, well, some people say don't preach your saviors. And other people say, well, do if there's value to it. Right? Like, there's a time and a place to use your saviors and use them well. And somebody else doesn't have your saviors, and they should be using your saviors.
Right.
So it's not like you have to repress your saviors, because that would be stupid. And if that's already what you do, it's almost as if you're if whatever you do naturally, you kind of have to incorporate that into your development. You don't just let it go completely and then not do anything. You have to expand your consciousness. You don't want to shift your consciousness and keep it as limited as it was before, just in a different position, because that's not expanding your consciousness. That's keeping it limited, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll work to some extent, but it's not necessarily going to work for everything else that it needs to work for.
Right.
So, you got to be careful of that. But, yeah, the whole Hugh might be preaching his saviors, and Kant might be preaching his saviors. But when you look at it that way, it's like, okay, maybe this is what these philosophers were talking about without realizing it. It's not like there weren't historical figures that by today's standards, they would be acting in a certain way that was obviously that type, quote unquote, right? Like, I don't know any totally historical figures per se that, I guess everybody types Lucille Ball as ESTJ, including objective personality. And it's like, okay, maybe Lucille Ball acted like a really stereotypical ESTJ. I don't know. Was she a nasty person? Is that what's important? Maybe. But if she was a good person, then that's, a good thing to look at in relation to it. And I think that when you start really going through at first when you get into Myers-Briggs and you're like, oh, well, these are the bad people. These are the no-nos in my life. These people, the censors are bad, or the EJs are bad. And then you really start learning that a lot of the people you like are also some of the types that you're demonizing. That's kind of like, are they bad? Or what's bad?
I don't.
I thought
I'm trying
ESTP was
to.
the annoying type. I thought that was the annoying type. Like, oh, these guys are the assholes. And then I got my type back, and I'm like, no shit, really? What's their argument for this? I have to listen to these voice clips now because I want to know what they're getting on and on about.
Yeah.
You know?
So Matt, you got to help me out. Where
What?
are we in the doc? Where are we in the doc right now?
Well, I just
but
watched I just read out of social cognition, and we're not necessarily strictly adhering to the doc.
I'm aware. I'm not controlling you with the doc.
Sometimes
I need help.
You need help. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
where are we?
The question we're like in the part where I was talking about SC and NI, and now we're like taking a sidetrack. You want to take like a cool sidetrack? You want to like chit chat about some of the things and process the things? How about that police officer, huh? You're gonna put him in the blender and press go and process him? You're gonna get some cop juice?
Dude, I need help, man. You just gotta help me out. You gotta help me out.
I got a vaccine for you. Beep.
Oh my god. Okay. So
did you get immunized against COVID yet?
I have not. I know I'm going to be effie shamed for that, but I have not yet.
No, I'm not going to effie shame you because sometimes it's hard. It's really difficult to get an appointment, and you got to stay on the phone for a while. And I managed to get, both of my injections by now, but it's just ridiculous.
Oh, cool.
And
yeah,
I would say try each county of the state that you live in. Like, go to all the counties. If you got to drive 2 hours out of the way, you're able to.
Yeah,
it might be worth it, right? Like,
yeah.
I didn't get my vaccine in the county I live in. I went to a different county to get my vaccine because I had to, because I went into each county. Now, granted, in my state, I only have like 30 of them, so it was a little bit easier than if I lived in Texas and I was going to do each county. But also, I guess less people are getting the vaccine in Texas, so it might be easier for that reason. But, people who don't want to take the vaccine and all that. But, it's various. And I was thinking, tracking quadras would be something to do potentially for OP when you're typing people, because I remember I was looking at and first off, I don't know how you would track the coins. I don't know how you would track quadras per se. I don't have any system as to how to track quadras.
Okay.
How would you track quadras? What would your idea
be?
Yeah.
Me personally, I mean, I would just leverage like what Dave and Shan have been preaching about, where it's like they apparently can track the extroverted animals or the extroverted functions. So it's like the SE and FE, like they apparently can tell the SE FE in a person, right? Because they're like, oh, they're really good at tracking the trajectory of relationships and stuff like that. Like versus like SETE, for example, they're really good at just tracking like what is objectively working in reality and stuff like that. So that seems to be the most current state efficient way to track the quadras. I mean, there's probably a better way, but
Yeah. There was that class that they came out on their website, and it was talking about, what are the play animals like. And when I first wrote this doc with like, the podcast stuff, it was like, okay, tracking quadras, maybe we're going to think about certain tropes that relate to specific axes.
Okay.
I was doing Megyn Kelly, and, I wasn't seeing F at all. I get the argument as to why it's there, because you have to look for the reason as to why she's doing it. But the specific videos I was pulling up, I remember I had her on the Ben Shapiro show, and it almost looked like to me that they were the same exact 512 type. Like it was just all block banging. And she's very good at block banging. Like she's really good at it.
Yeah.
So she's very, very double deciding.
Mm-hmm.
And that fact, it was like, okay, she must be T. Because I saw her the thing where she was talking about horror, the Harvey Weinstein thing on the interview. And then she was talking to Ben Shapiro, and that was the next thing that I watched. And then the thing I watched after that was something. She was talking more about the Harvey Weinstein stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
she eventually got down to like something along the lines of, "Isn't that really embarrassing?" was the word that she said. And when I heard her say that, I started to think, okay, that is probably FITE.
Okay.
But what I marked down for my coin was DE because I already had a bunch of T's tallied and no F's.
Okay.
So I marked down a thing for DE because if I already have T, and it seems like she's using the TEFI axis, then I might as well. And you could argue that in a certain sense, I got pretty close to her, which I did. I got her as MF PCBS NETE. So really the only thing that I got wrong was the consume and the play.
Right.
She's consume over play, not play over consume. But maybe her values are that of being very logical.
Yeah.
You know, people can argue, people can talk about like different things when they're saying, is this person using F in service of T, or are they using T in service of F? Or are they using S in service of N, or are they using N in service of S? I actually typed Sadhguru as a savior censor because I first saw him on the Logan Paul interview where he was talking about all you have is your experience to go off of. And, you know, you close your eyes, you don't actually know that there's something outside of you. You're just assuming it. I'm like, okay, so this guy goes real far out into intuition land just to come back and say, it's wrong. That's an illusion. And he says, you know, you can guess, but that's not necessarily the case of that being that what's true. And, you know, I guess this was kind of a bias because this is how I kind of use N, right? I go into N a lot for the sake of taking it down. Not necessarily that I dislike N. I mean, I like it. I like looking into it. But I think that you could do that really with any time. I'm sure that the N could go deep into S to say how the S is wrong. And I'm thinking of ways that they'd be able to do that. Because if they're just going to say, oh, you know, this is the steering wheel, that's the field, those are the clouds, that's the tree, that's the Jeep, that's the squirrel. And then they're going to say, all right, those are those objects. What do you think they would say?
What they would say is the way you're categorizing them is wrong. Like Jordan Peterson did that basically, right? So he went to the sensory. It was SI, granted, but he went into the SI of, I think, for example, human perception, right? He was studying human perception, and one of his famous lines is he's like people mistakenly assume that they see objects, but they do not see objects. They first see affordances and obstacles to evolutionary imperatives. So it's like a child or a human being does not see a cliff, right? So that's him saying the sensory is wrong. You do not see a cliff, you see a falling off place. And he says that all the time. So that's an example of how like an intuitive would go into the sensory only to say that the sensory is wrong, and you have to categorize it basically.
So do you think that then in that case the cliff is an OI thing? Because I would argue that the sensory is not what you're calling it, but the sensory is the thing itself. The categorization is the OI, regardless of whether or not it's abstract or concrete.
Yeah, so it's that's why I said it's SI, right? So it's like he's looking like SI, he's looking at the word cliff. That's his sensory. Now, this kind of differs from your point because technically that's still abstract. The word is not the thing, but my experience has been at least SI will lock on to the words. They get very particular about their words. You didn't use the right word. You didn't use the right grammar. So it's like Peterson's looking at the SI of cliff and he's saying that SI is wrong. right? So he's shitting on it.
Yeah, and I've noticed this a lot with. There are a lot of people who really, really insist on the proper usage of words,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a use for that. Let's not say that there's not a use for that, because that's wrong. If I
Okay.
start talking to you and saying, "Did you know what I did to my lemon this morning?" and I mean to talk about my car, you're gonna be like, "What?
Yes.
What lemon? What did you do? Did you eat a lemon? Did you get a lemon and did you eat it? Was it sour? Are your teeth
Mm-hmm.
okay? Do you need to brush your teeth?"
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was my car, but I called it a lemon. Now,
Right.
okay, some people call cars lemons if the car sucks. But
Yes.
okay, so let's say I called it a pomegranate. All right, then now there's no connection, and now I just said, you know what I did to my pomegranate this morning. I'm like, I don't know. Did you eat it? Like, I guess you had a pomegranate for breakfast. Cool story, bro. Of course, if I was gonna say, you know what I did to my pomegranate this morning, I'm gonna have a punchline there, right? Or I'm gonna try to come up with a punchline. But the word you gotta say, you know what I did to my automobile this morning. I don't have to say car. I can say automobile. You know what I did to my
Okay.
ride this morning, and people know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Well, let me get into more conversations where, and this is what we're trying to do in OPs. We're trying to look at expressions of psychology and trying to come up with the same terms for them. But when it comes to a situation where it's more or less about you're asking somebody to describe things, right? If you
Yeah.
were, and even if you were to OP type somebody this way, try to do this, and
Yeah.
you would say, okay, this person literally said that, therefore they mean that.
Okay.
That right there could be an issue with it. If you're only looking at language that way, you're just taking that language literally. The person says,
Yeah.
I'm upset, then it's kind of like, okay, it would really be easy for me to know specifically physiologically what they're feeling, but why are they feeling upset? And sometimes if they don't know what their own motivation is, them telling you that they're upset is not really the most constructive conversation to have. You asking them why are they upset is not necessarily going to be the most constructive conversation to have. And it's very difficult because you also want to assume that the client has their own volition to say, this is what I want to talk about, and mean that when they start a conversation.
Yes. So Matt,
Yeah, so what?
so hold on. Remember, we're doing a Q&A in like 2 minutes. So
Yeah,
you gotta start cleaning it up.
Well, I figured
So
we'd clean it up together.
there you go.
Do we
All
have
right,
to
here we
structure the
go.
whole thing?
Let's
We
process
can
it.
talk for the next 7 minutes. Some sleepy time.
There you go. Yeah, let's do the sleepy time, and then we're gonna do Q&A. I just want to let you know so that you don't feel controlled.
Yep, I'm aware. I do not feel controlled.
Of course not. Yes. So yeah. So I would say to kind of wrap up what you were saying. Okay. So, I mean, what was your point with that though? Is like, I mean, yeah, it's like you can. It's like you don't always. Yeah, the sensory can change, but it's still arriving at the same point. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, you're talking about SCNI versus NESI?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I isn't that what you're talking about? Because you were saying, hey,
Yeah.
if I call my car a lemon or if I called it a pomegranate, you're gonna get confused. But there are synonyms in the sensory, so even if you change the sensory, you could get the same meaning. That was how I was tracking it. Maybe I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and if we're tracking human needs, language
Yes.
games per se, as Wittgenstein would say. If you go to a philosophy place, they generally want to play the game. For like beginning philosophy students, they'll ask them, "Is a hot dog a sandwich?" Or they'll ask,
Okay.
"What is a sandwich? Is a hot dog a sandwich? Is a Pop-Tart a sandwich?" And the whole point of that is for you to think, what does language mean? Is language based on use? Is language based on what? And that's really the mind fuck that it's supposed to give you, is that, what is language actually based on? And is language based off of human needs, like the gather, organize, tribe identity? Maybe to the extent that you use language to fulfill the needs.
Okay.
Because if you use language to fulfill the needs, then maybe it is indicative of that.
Okay.
There's a few ways you could look at it in regards to that. But maybe if you really want to get more into the essence of somebody's perception and judgment, it just goes to show that you have to dig a little bit deeper than their words.
Okay.
You have to, I guess I'm preaching to the choir. Lots
Yeah,
of
you kind of
singing,
are.
people in robes and things like that.
Yes.
The SCNI axis and the NESI axis are really complicated stuff that I really want to get to the bottom to, and I think that's like when you consider that, this might be a way to consider it, like a tool to use.
Yes.
But as you were saying, the play, like the tracking the play animals, and I agree with that. If that's the way to track it, then I'm just gonna go with whatever is currently, that's the way to track it, because I'm not putting so much energy in trying to develop the system. I've got my thoughts. My thoughts are there. I'm thinking about them, and I put a little bit of energy into speculating when I'm driving around or when I'm waking up or cooking. And then otherwise, I'm not typing 40 people a month.
Right.
How many people do you type a month?
6, maybe.
So far, I think I'm at like 3.
Yeah.
This month was 3.
Yeah.
And some people I spend more time on than others. I didn't spend a lot of time on Mark Manson. I got him upside down. I got him as FENI.
Nice. Well, I mean, that's not exactly wrong.
It's not. I've been doing that a lot. I've been typing people somewhat correctly, but literally upside down. It used to be like I got FESI for what was her face? Lovey Ajayi Jones, which is like not near. I'm getting closer with it, and sometimes I'm getting exactly the type, or I'm getting the upside down type. So that's kind of been my progress with it.
Yeah, that's pretty good actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's Matt. Let's do Q&A now.
We're not going to get to the full doc.
We're not going to get to the full doc. It's okay. We did our best. All right, so I'm going to read them out to you because I know you're on your phone. Let's see here. There's a lot of comments. Yeah, and if you want to look at the comments, you can. But the first question I'm going to ask: why are SE DOMs always
Eric
in
Thompson
their cars?
says, "What the fuck?" Wait. No. Let's single out Eric Thompson here. What the fuck? He's explaining it. Just lie, my dude. Oh yeah, this guy's a liar. Look at this guy. Ha ha.
Yeah.
No, you got.
There you go,
This. Just lie, my dude. Look at this liar over here, Eric Thompson. Whoa. Look at the liar in the room. Who's this guy? What's up with that shadow? Oh, he's like, look at me.
Okay, let's not. I kind of like Eric, so let's leave Eric alone.
I don't know anything. I don't know anything about Eric. Hi, Eric.
All right, me either. Eric's nice. But okay, there's the mask enough for you. Why are SE DOMs always in their cars?
That's funny.
Can you enlighten us?
My house is noisy, so at least right now, right? And I like talking in here because it's more. I can concentrate better than in my house.
Okay.
I live with tenants. Sometimes the walls can be paper thin, stuff like that, but it's.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm thinking of people who like YouTubers who are in their cars, and I don't really find that I relate to them or anything. It's not like I'm consciously saying, "Oh, I'm an SE Dom. I'm in my car." Ha 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 ha. That's not really what I'm thinking about. But it is funny that it ended up getting memed like that, I suppose.
Yeah. All right, so there you go. Next is from Jasper. Do you have a YouTube channel? So he was saying you seem to be able to talk about this stuff all day. He's wondering if you have a YouTube channel.
I do have a YouTube channel. I don't post to it often. I'm doing other things right now. It's yeah, it's blasting like this. I don't do it on YouTube or anything like that. It's not
Yeah,
something that I'm currently doing, but I do have
yeah,
two YouTube channels. I have Matt Tucci Music, which is my music channel, and I have Myagushki, Myagooshki, which is my channel that
yeah,
goes back for a while about things.
yeah. I didn't. This
So
is my first time. I should have asked you. I didn't know you had YouTube channels. So yeah. After this, you could just send them to me, and I could add them to the description. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
yeah,
Okay, we could do that. Okay, there you go, Jasper. Next, Dion. Hi, Dion. He wants some cliff notes as to what the hell is happening. Can you give us some cliff notes? Can you give us the NI overview?
Cliff Notes.
Mm-hmm.
I could send him the screenshots from my book that I was saying that I was
Oh,
reading
there you
from.
go.
That could be one thing that I could do.
Yeah.
And then otherwise, it's a podcast, like,
Yeah.
listen along, take it in, stuff like that.
Yeah. There you
There's also
go.
this website that transcribes podcasts. You can use that to like get the text version of whatever people are saying, and it does its best. I mean, every so often it messes up punctuation or specific words, but you can go in and see where that is and change it.
Yeah, there you go, Dion. Do all
I
yeah.
got a question, right? Because I could
Oh,
help this guy with the link, but would I be able to open up another app
I don't think
while this is
so.
going? You don't?
No,
Okay.
not on mobile.
Okay.
Not on mobile.
All right.
Yeah.
So Dion, I suppose he's in the community, and I'll send him a link to that website so he can transcribe this if he wants, and then I'll send him the
There
images.
you go, Dion. There you go. All right. Next is Ian. Hey, Ian. He wants to know what your hero's journey is like. I actually am curious about this as well. Like, what has your hero's journey been like? Oh, and what is it?
My hero's journey, I'm like in the middle of it type thing. I'm trying. I want to be a musician. I want to have a band. I want to have an online business. I've been looking into it for a while. I'm studying the markets. I'm gonna trade, and I've been doing a lot of research. So it's getting
Mhm.
towards the end. I'm gonna have to find somebody to fund me, and I'm gonna be going to different places to ask people to fund me and stuff like that. I'm gonna go to different events and stuff, and meet people.
Yeah.
So I'm getting towards the end of it. I was looking up a lot of different things about how to do that, so I can have money, so I can do my music thing a little bit easier, a little bit more independently,
Yeah.
and I and yeah, I've been doing a lot of research about the psychology stuff,
Hmm.
and yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about the music world, but I'm Junior Kimbrough. He went and started when he was 36. He was a pretty old
Okay.
guy. He was working on a farm for a while, I think, and then he went up to some place and then he started recording his music.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was a pretty old guy, and that's interesting. And the hero's journey, I mean, you I'm doing something.
Hmm. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, like, part of the hero's journey is like the facing the pain of your demons. Quite frankly, like, so for example, with you, let's stick with the music.
Mm-hmm.
In your pursuit of the music,
Mm-hmm.
dream that you have. I mean, have you been experiencing any challenges in your demons at all?
Well, I haven't really started that yet, but
Oh, okay.
you know, it's not something I really have to do.
Mm,
You know, there's a lot of different things, and everybody wants to say pain of the demons, this, pain of the demons, that. I say there's a way that I can you can use your saviors to do all the demons. You figure out what the demons are, and then you use your
okay.
saviors to do them. Because you're not going to do your demons. You're going to do your saviors. You're going to
Okay.
use your like I have the O prayer. may the STs ST the NF, may the SFs SF the NT, may the NTs NT the SF, may the NFs NF the ST.
Okay.
You use what you use, and you expand your consciousness, but you don't shift your consciousness over to the demons.
So, wait, but what are you saying? So, you're saying like no one ever does their demons ever?
I don't think so. No, I think they do what they perceive their demons to be, because you don't know
Huh?
what another person's perception is. I don't know what an NIFE does. I don't know what they do. I ape them. I ape them
Right.
in relation to what I think they're doing. I ape them in relation to the context of what I think they're doing.
Right.
That's what I do there.
Right. Right. Okay. So you're
Right?
saying, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. But at least you're doing that. It sounds like so. It's good. Let me see here. Next question. Are you Dave Powers' son?
Am I his son? No.
Yeah.
I never heard of him until recently.
Oh, see, there you go.
But see, that's Queen's Gambit. Okay, that's Axis 12. And in Axis 12, they have me as TENE, as well as Dave as TENE. And they have a similar, like, they have a different thing. They don't have, like, masculine, feminine stuff, but they have, like, development bars instead of animals. So it would be, like, bar hyphen, or, like, bar if you're conscious of it, and then hyphen if you're not, and then colon if you're semi-conscious of it. And then they also have like plus, minus, plus for the 4 functions and stuff like that. And apparently my type is like really similar to Dave's in that system. So that's probably why he's asking that.
Okay. Well, there you go. Next question is actually for me. I skipped it. Where is my DE banner? I don't have one.
What is a DE banner?
DE banner is basically where it's like you have every time someone comments, you add their name and it like starts scrolling across the bottom. Like, have you ever been to Grace channel at Augmented Personality at all?
I haven't.
She does that. Yeah, you should check it out. She does that every single time. Like, it's like a little literally, it's like if Jasper comments, she would like put in Jasper, and like for the rest of the show, it's like Jasper's name is floating on the bottom. And I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna do that.
This is fine. We got names on the different things, and
yeah,
that's cool.
It's cool. Next question. Oh, this is a good question. What is your double activated, double masculine SF play like? And they asked, is it tiring?
Is it tiring? Well, my position, if I'm being honest, is that I'm not really good at anything besides consume. Like, I mean, I can be good at play sometimes. I can be good at blast sometimes. I can even be good at sleep sometimes. But my initial processing of the type was, if this is true, I'm mostly doing consume, and I'm not even doing play. And a lot of the play is a lot of people, like, I used to have like automatic mental imageries of people yelling at me in my mind. Like, there was this play simulation that the tribe was coming after me, and it was just like reoccurring thoughts of people like yelling at me, and then sometimes people would get physically violent with me, and I was just getting these reoccurring thoughts and stuff.
Yeah.
And that would definitely be tiring. And I don't like what I'm doing now is not. It's not tiring because I don't do it all the time. I know that it's not going to be forever. And I know that, eventually, okay, I get to sleep. I get to do this. I get to do that. I get to think about things later. And I do get to think about things later. I don't have to process things right now. I don't have to do that. I have time to process things, and that comes later. So I've balanced things. It's, I have done a lot of consume over the years. So now the point was telling me, okay, these are what these parts are. I haven't had automatic thoughts of people attacking me for months. I figured out how to get that under control. It was sort of like maybe a play simulation or some sort of demon blast, or I don't know what you specifically, but some sort of masculine FE. It's sort of like you don't want to go along with a tribe because you feel like you're going to submit to them. It's like, ugh. You gotta do what I say, like that whole type of thing. It's like, ugh, that's scary, but
that's pretty scary. Yeah. So wow, I'm sorry to hear that, man. I didn't know you went through that.
You know, what do I got to do? You know, you got to play with the cards you're dealt.
That's true. That's very true. Very wise. Next question, possibly the last question. What is SF cool to you, bruh?
What's SF cool to me, bro? I mean, first off, I do like podcasts. I think podcasts are pretty SF cool. Maybe that's not what SF really means, but like, I do enjoy the vibe of podcasts as well as listening to the content of them.
Yeah.
I do like metal. I love metal. Metal's the genre I want to play.
Nice.
There's
Wait, what instruments do you play?
I play guitar, drums, bass, piano. I write a lot on piano. I write a lot of music on piano. Yeah,
Cool.
and then I do that over. I transfer that to guitar. It's fun. I like doing it that way. I get to do rhythm and singing.
Nice. Okay, yeah, no, I didn't know that. Okay, so music's cool to you. So what else is SF cool to you, bruh?
I like cats.
Okay. I like cats too.
I don't know. I don't relate to the SF cool thing. You know, I don't relate to the. I don't relate to the image of people of my type. It's like I'm doing something very different from what a lot of the other SCTIs are doing. If I'm being completely honest, if I look at the other ones like the Cody Co and the Donald Trump, and well, I mean Donald Trump even more related to the things I do, but still not there. But then you look at like Zach Brown, and like I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm not these things. It's that's not the stuff that's SF cool to me, I suppose. It's not what's SF cool to me. It's not really what I do.
Yeah.
But so it does wonder to me, like, okay, well then what is SF cool? Is it like it's not me asking what's cool. Like I like what things do I think are cool? I think animals are cool. I think science is cool. I think driving is cool. I think
clearly.
Yeah. I think I guess paintball is pretty cool. I haven't really played it before, but like it looks fun. So yeah. I guess I don't really know. That's my response.
Okay, so there's a follow-up question I'm actually tracking. So this question was from Ian. Thank you, Ian. The follow-up question seems to be coming from Mr. Bloodfang Beloved. So he was basically hypothesizing that. So I'm gonna read this. He was basically hypothesizing that you have a hard time doing things or being somewhere if the SF vibe is off, right? And he was wondering if it hurts your life, right? And so his question was, so he's like, okay, for example, the reason you said you're in your car is because it's a comfortable place for you to do this interaction. So he's like, hey, for example, would this interview be harder for you if you were at home because the SF vibe is off?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it an SF vibe being off.
Okay.
But I don't want anybody to potentially interrupt me with any noises. Like if somebody flushes the toilet in the background, I don't want that to be in there. If if there's TV or if there's somebody knocks on the door or something like that, I just don't like. It's not like my house is a bad place to be, but there's things that go on within the house that I don't want to interrupt the podcast, and I don't want to interrupt my train of thought or anything like that.
Yes, I feel like that's. I would like to say that's pretty universal, but then again, what's interesting is we both have double masculine SF, double masculine SF.
We do.
Like, that stuff bothers me too. Except I just am so demon about it. Sometimes I forget until it's too late, But yeah, it's annoying. So it's like I don't know if it's a human thing or if it's like a double masculine SF thing or it could be a number of things, But okay, cool. I don't see any other questions.
Yeah, I mean, like just to recap, I'd say my hero's journey is for me. I don't know how many other people are doing it that way. I don't know how many people are trying to do something complicated like study finance in order to you know, do what they're doing in their career. A lot of people tell me they would never want to do that, and other people are saying, you know, they don't want to be a musician. They don't want
Yeah.
to. They would never want to do that. It just seems boring to them. They don't. There's a lot of people I know who don't like music. So different heroes' journeys are going to be different. And I guess in language, I'm saying I'm not doing my demons. I'm aping the demons because
Sure.
it's like I'm not gonna be. I don't want to be the dog whisperer,
Right. I
Cesar
get it.
Milan.
I get it.
But
Yeah.
you figure out what he's doing. You figure, okay, how does that make sense to me? What can I learn from that? I listen to Russell Brand. You know, what can I learn from that? I listen to anybody else. What can I learn from that? It doesn't even have to be people with my functions. Just, you know, anybody. What can I learn from that? And you
Right.
kind of ape it. You get better at doing different things in different situations.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's pretty growth mindset, quite frankly. Like, you know, so it's really cool that you're doing that. Um, and honestly, this is a pretty fun conversation for me. I'm not gonna lie to you. I had fun.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you
was
so
fun.
much. Yeah, it was pretty fun. We didn't get through the doc, unfortunately. So we'll, you know, if you'd like, stay on, and we'll just talk about what we're gonna do about that. But for everyone else, you know, I know it's a Friday evening. Truly appreciate it. Truly appreciate you guys joining us. If you guys have any other additional questions, you know where to find us in the Facebooks. And then leave a comment as well, and then we'll kind of get to that. Okay. So everyone else, thank you. Matt, just stay on for a little bit, and I will see you on the next one. Take care, guys.